Howdy, everyone. This is another episode of the Babel Royale podcast. I'm Parker.
And I'm Mason.
That was delayed, but we're going to keep rolling anyway. So I actually don't know precisely what this episode is about. Mason has um, sort of an agenda, I guess, for this podcast. We're going to be talking about social media. In particular, we're going to be talking about Parlor and Gab, which is a social media site which actually far predates Parlor. It's a few years old now. Parlor's
Hmm.
relatively new as far as I'm aware. Anyway, they've
Yeah, I think
definitely been persecuted for longer. Their persecution started in 2017, getting kicked off virtually every payment network and system and service on the planet except for Bitcoin because no one can kick you off Bitcoin. Anyhow, like I said, don't really know where Mason's headed with this, so I'm going to hand it over to him. What's up, Mason? What are we talking about?
well, the reason I am interested in talking about this today is because Trump is launching a new social media site, allegedly, supposedly. We don't know much about it, but we know it's called Truth Social. Um, Truth is capitalized, I'm pretty sure, for some reason. Um, and I got to say, like right off the bat, one of the worst names I have ever heard for a social media company. And we kind of both agree on this, but I'm just kind of baffled that that's what they went with. I hope they change it before it launches, but it's just terrible. Um, but anyways, we're not here to discuss why the name sucks. We're here to discuss um, what the future might look like for it, and what I think Trump should strive for when launching this. And if anyone else were to launch a right wing social media per se, um, what they might try to do as well. And like maybe we can learn from Gab and Parlor's mistakes and, see where they went wrong. And so hopefully stuff like Truth Social is a little more successful than the other ones. So I kind of wanted to first start with like the reasons why I think Gab and Parlor failed. Um, they haven't like failed. They're still around. I think even Gab is still around. Parker said it was the older of the two, and he was
That's
correct.
correct. And they
I
are both
think
still around.
yeah, they're both still around, but fairly muted, especially Gab. Parlor's still kind of kicking, but both were. If you don't know, the real meat of the story is basically both of these platforms launched as like quote unquote free speech apps. They were both basically Twitter but free speech. That was kind of like their whole shtick, their niche. Um, and yeah, they launched as those things, basically right wing catered social media, and basically almost immediately they were struck down by the likes of like Google, the government, Amazon, the typical big forces in today's politics and business. Basically looked for any reason to shut them down. I forget why Gab in particular was shut down, but it was probably similar to Parlor. Um, and when I say shut down, I mean specifically in the case of Parlor, they were taken off Amazon Web Services. Amazon Web Services hosts, I think, 40% of all sites or something like that. I think is the statistic.
That's about
Parker, you know
right.
that one?
I do.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's all of the internet or if that's just 40% of the cloud services and hosting market in general. But in either case, it's pretty terrifying. Gab actually was kicked off of AWS also,
Okay.
but
I
much
thought so.
earlier, much earlier.
Hmm. Yeah, this was back in like when Donald Trump was
2017.
president.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
want to say 17. Don't quote me on that.
I think it was 2017 as well, but it's not too particularly important to what we're talking about.
No, sir.
In any case, both were kicked off Amazon Web Services essentially for no reason. The reason they gave, I forget again. I forget why Gab in particular was kicked off, but the reason they gave for Parler was essentially that I think it was January 6th, the January 6th riots. They said there was planning on Parler. I think Is that
Yes,
correct? Do you
that was
remember? Yeah.
never mind that it was mostly on Facebook, or at least most of the
Facebook and
chatter
Twitter.
was on Facebook.
Yeah.
They said
There was
that people
evidence of,
congregated on Parlor, but Parlor doesn't even have a function for creating groups, unlike Facebook. So that it's obviously selective prosecution of that. And
mhm.
Gab's pathetic excuse for getting kicked off of basically out of the entire market. Anybody who could cut ties with them did. Visa even, which is really something.
Didn't Apple kick them off the App Store or something like that?
Yeah, they got kicked off the app stores. Amazon pulled their
Yeah.
hosting. Square, Stripe, and Visa, and maybe some others refused to process their payments. Visa went a step further, and this is really egregious. They won't let the CEO or his wife, which really
Yeah.
that bit is really particularly messed up. But his wife, they we can't. Neither of them can have a Visa card, credit or
Yeah,
debit.
I remember that one.
That's horrific. But anyway,
That's an insane measure.
oh, that's yeah, it's like a death sentence just about. They got that treatment because a shooter, I don't remember which one, it might have been New Haven. Was there a shooting in New Haven? Am I getting that right? Newport,
I
maybe?
couldn't tell you.
New,
Maybe Newport.
some
That
is
sounds
Connecticut.
familiar. Mm.
There was some. I'm not even sure it was that. It was. There was a shooting where a guy posted on Gab. I think he said, "I'm going in," or something. And so the whole site was prosecuted essentially for that guy shooting up a bunch of people because he said he was going to do it on the site before he did, which happens very frequently on other sites and no one cares. So it was very similar to Parlor. It's absolute horse shit. They didn't do anything wrong, but the elites wanted them gone, and so they found an excuse.
Yeah. Essentially, all you really need to know about Gab and Parler for the extent of this discussion is that right wing, um, they cater to the right wing essentially because they branded themselves as free speech platforms. And then they were swiftly kicked off of the Amazon Web Services and basically any app you can think of. Visa, Parker mentioned Visa, slapped him on the wrist as well, more than slapped him on the wrist. Yeah, they basically got shut down for all intents and purposes. They're still kind of around, but you're not going to hear anyone in your daily life talking about Gab as much as they talk about Twitter, for instance. Um, and so this kind of leads into the first point I wanted to make on how you can prevent this from happening if you were to start a social media platform or just a business in general. Do your best not to rely on the leftist infrastructure, if at all possible. Don't rely on Amazon Web Services. Don't rely on Google because they will shut you down. They will look for excuses. Parlor, Amazon knew the second Parlor popped up that they wanted to shut it down. They were just looking for some excuse to take it off Amazon Web Services. This isn't like, an, an agreed upon fact that's out there in the universe that was reported on, but you can just tell the way this went down. They were looking for an excuse to kick Parlor off, and they did. Um, so yeah, the first point, it's easier said than done, but don't rely on leftist infrastructure because they're just looking to shut you down.
Right.
Second, kind of a related point, but play your cards right. The reason these sites got attacked like they did is because they set themselves up as right wing sites, because they set themselves up as free speech platforms. No one would have given a shit. Take TikTok, for example, new social media. Um, if Twitter wanted to, if Facebook wanted to, they maybe could have found a way to, get in cahoots with Amazon or something and get TikTok shut down for whatever reason they could find. There was all that talk about, China owning them, and so Trump was going to ban them here, what have you. The reason they didn't is because TikTok is not a political platform inherently. Like TikTok, they don't got beef with TikTok. the way they had beef with Gab and Parlor. TikTok is now thriving, and TikTok is doing fine, um, whereas Gab and Parlor are not. And the reason is because TikTok is just a video sharing site. It's basically Vine 2.0. And that's all they marketed themselves as. They weren't marketing themselves as the free speech platform. They weren't marketing themselves as a huge competitor to Twitter or Facebook. They were just another social media platform. I think the second you say you're going to be a free speech platform or a right wing platform, right wing Twitter or whatever, you immediately put a target on your back. You're just asking for trouble. You're
Yeah.
asking to get shut down.
Right.
Um, and then the third point I wanted to make is kind of related, but it's just have a good gimmick. And I talked about TikTok. The reason TikTok is thriving is because it's got an addictive loop to it. People love watching videos, funny videos, instructional videos, dancing videos, what have you, whatever people share. People just like watching that kind of content and they like scrolling through a feed of it. Instagram, people like sharing pictures of themselves, pictures of the beach, stuff like that. Twitter, its whole thing was 140 character updates about your life. All of these platforms have shticks. Facebook, Vine, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is Facebook, but for connecting with career prospects, career people. Snapchat, it has a shtick. Um, Gab and Parler's shtick was, again, it was just free speech. That's not exciting. It doesn't grab people's attention. It doesn't lure people to the platform, other than right wing people who want a free speech platform. But it doesn't. There's nothing enticing about that. It doesn't make you want to stick around. And I think one of the reasons um, why Gavin Parler failed is because they didn't have like an audience outside of people that got banned on Twitter because they were too right wing. Like that was their main audience. The Alex Joneses of the world. Um, they didn't have a good gimmick. You know, um, and kind of tying this back to the politics side of it, no one gives a shit about your politics as long as you deliver a good product to them. Twitter, as lefty as it gets, I'm still on Twitter, even though I hate lefties and I hate leftists and everything about Twitter I hate, but I am still on Twitter. Reasons I don't know, because I like Twitter for some reason, for some godforsaken reason. I like scrolling through Twitter and getting updates on people's lives. I use it less often than I did in like 2017, 2016, but I still use it. I still like seeing people's updates. I like seeing, people post pictures of, their graduation or something like that. It's like cool sharing that with other people. There's something really inherently addictive about Twitter. Facebook, another good example. Parker and I have a buddy um, that is no right winger at all. Um, at all. He's on the left for sure. And he has a Facebook account. And he's never really said he particularly likes Facebook. But the only reason he has a Facebook account is because his entire family is like attached to the app. Like they all communicate through this app. They have, Facebook groups where they talk about weddings coming up, events coming up, stuff like that. He has to be on Facebook. He's like tied to Facebook. Um,
Against his will.
Basically against his will. Yeah. um, but the point of this is people will put up with your bullshit. They'll put up with your politics, because not a lot of people like Twitter's politics, not a lot of people like Facebook's politics, but they will put up with it. Um, and this kind of gets into the point. If you look at Parker has some of the charts I sent him, but if you look at just the indexes um, of these social media sites, they're all going up every year. No one's going down. Facebook recently had that issue where their entire site went down for like 6 hours or
On
something.
a
How long was it? Do you remember?
DNS level.
Yeah.
which is that's impressive.
Yeah. So go to Facebook real quick. Are you on Facebook?
This is Facebook, yeah. This is only
If you,
since November.
yeah, if you look at the very tail end, you can see kind of like, a couple points where they dipped. I don't know when this thing was. It was fairly recently, like the last 2 weeks. You look in the last 2 weeks, there's not like huge dips compared to like, the gains they've been making throughout just the past year alone, let alone like from 2014 to now. Um,
Right.
that was nothing to them. They don't lose anything. And then Netflix is another good example. You want to pull Netflix up. Recently, Netflix has had this kind of drama surrounding Dave Chappelle because Dave Chappelle made a comedy
Special.
stand-up routine, comedy special, yeah, where he had some comments about transgender people, I believe,
It's not
LGBTQ
even
plus
comments. It
community in
bothers me
general.
when we call them comments. It's jokes.
Yeah,
News anchors have
he had some
comments.
jokes. That's
Podcasters
true.
have
That's a good point.
comments. He got jokes.
Yeah, but I was reading about this, and this was, I think, October 6th. So if you can find October 6th on there, there's like a little dip, and then it's already going back up
Can you guys see that?
because no one,
Let me zoom in
because no one, right?
on
It's
this
almost
dip.
flat, actually.
What dip, Mason? Did
Right. The,
it
and the
opened
point I'm trying
higher
to
than
get
it
across,
closed on October
yeah,
6th.
the point I'm trying to get across here is, and there's been protests the past few days because there's like Netflix employees protesting and lefties protesting. But the
Damn,
point I'm
that's
trying to get
crazy. It
across
set an
here,
all-time high today.
goddamn, yeah, I mean, so the point is, no one gives a shit.
Yeah.
It Dave Chappelle can say whatever the hell he wants on Netflix. It's not going to hurt Netflix's bottom line. There's people pissed. There's people protesting. No one gives a shit. Ask the average person. They probably don't even know David Chappelle's comedy special even exists. They're probably like, oh, really? Some of them probably don't even know who Dave Chappelle is. They're like, who? Who? Dave Chappelle. You mean David Cage? David Rush Limbaugh? I don't. They don't know who Dave Chappelle is, and yeah, it's just like that. It's like their bottom line isn't hurting. No one. Netflix has such a good product, and it is a good product. I
It is
know
a legitimate
Parker.
good product.
Parker's not too fond of Netflix right now because of the whole cuties debacle, and I get that. I'm not too fond of Netflix right now either. Um, yeah, no one gives a shit. Netflix has one of the greatest products out there. That's why they're one of the most highly valued companies out there. It's because they started it. They started basically all of streaming. They deliver movies and TV shows to your screen right in front of you. You don't have to go to Blockbuster. You don't have to go on demand. It's just right there.
Well, not
Click of a
just
button.
that. I mean, that's fairly
Hmm.
common, but even among the streaming services that exist, not only do they have the resources to get great licenses for great content, but they're making great content.
Yeah, Stranger Things, Squid Game. I think
House of
they
Cards, dude.
House of Cards.
Dude. I mean, that's
House
that's
of Cards
not.
is a fantastic show.
Yeah, that's not, Bob's Film Studio. Okay, that's not some kid's capstone project for film school. That's high octane, serious TV. That was a massive series.
Hmm.
Ended poorly, but nevertheless, a lot of money.
Yeah.
And the reason that it's important that they make it is because they have a monopoly on it. You ain't getting that on
Hmm.
Amazon or Hulu or HBO Max. Nah, Netflix.
Yeah. And it's not even we've talked about this before and with our buddies too. It's not that Netflix knows how to make a good show. They know who to hire to make a good show. They know they have the
Yes.
money to put into good shows. They have the money to invest in the people that make the good shows. They can get the writers, producers, the people making the music. They know what works, and
The
they have an
comedians.
insanely good product. Yeah, and the comedians too. They're hiring Dave Chappelle. They don't tell Dave Chappelle what to say. They hire him to say whatever the fuck you want,
Yeah.
and Dave Chappelle does it. Works for them. They make bank off of it. You notice they're actually defending Dave Chappelle.
Yeah.
I think fairly
Basically.
well.
They're basically
Yeah,
full on
unless
defending him.
things have changed in the past couple days and I didn't see it, they're full on defending him because they know he makes them money, and they know, and you can see from the stocks, it's not dipping. No
Nope.
one gives a shit about a no one gives a shit about a platform's politics unless their product is shitty enough that they're willing to give it up because they don't like the politics. You know, people, you may disagree with Netflix, but you're probably still paying for it. Amazon, same way. Google, you probably still use Google, even though they collect a shit ton of data on you.
Let's
The
look at
point
Twitter
is,
after the
mhm,
2020 election because a lot of people got banned and or left, including
yeah,
myself. I didn't get banned, but I would have eventually. Here you go. So this election was November 3rd. There it is. It is the 4th. Right in here. That's the election. January 6th is right there. Trump gets banned. There's a little dip. You can see that little dip when Trump gets banned. Wow, that was like went down from $38 all the way down to $36. That was a rough week. And then wouldn't you believe that they set a record in March? So I mean, even a mass exodus from the platform like that, and there was, and you noticed if you were a conservative. I mean, if you're
hmm,
a filthy commie on Twitter, you didn't notice because Trump left, and I guess you didn't see as many people bashing Trump because he wasn't there anymore. That was kind of pathetic. Anyway, if you're conservative, you notice what happened. Rush Limbaugh disappeared. I think Mark Levin disappeared. Obviously, Trump disappeared. Frontline doctors got banned. Sidney Powell got banned. Zev Zelenko got banned. Alex Berenson got banned. Somehow Jack Posobiec survived that purge. Somehow, I mean, the Daily Wire guys are all
somehow,
still there. There's a few who have yet to be culled. Give them a few years, they'll be gone. But I was serious. It was like half of the people who I really wanted to hear about. I mean, it was like the rapture. They were just gone.
yeah,
So, I mean, I
and
deleted my account, not even, I mean, partially it was because I hate Twitter and I don't want to give them money, not even ad money. But another significant part of it is the people who I'm on this platform to follow and to hear from, not all of them, but many of them are just gone. So, what am I here for?
mhm.
Telegram, baby.
Yeah, it was at that point Parker was like, I'm basically only here for a group message on Twitter. He's like, and if there's really something important, you guys will send it to me in text. I'm leaving Twitter. Bye.
Yep.
And you know that we do that. We send them Twitter posts if we see them in text,
Hmm.
and we think they're important enough. But
My mental
yeah, I
health is
mean,
better.
mhm, yeah, I'm sure it is. I don't use Twitter as much, and I've noticed the difference. But yeah, all of this is to say, Twitter's doing fine. They're doing hot right now. They're perfectly fine. Nothing matters because they have such an addictive um, loop of just keeping people coming back. Instagram's the same way, Facebook is the same way, Vine was the same way. If you have a good gimmick, if you have a good product, people don't care about your politics. That's the general trend I see. Now look back to Gab and Parlor. What is their gimmick? What are they offering that you can't get elsewhere?
I think
Can
you have
you
a.
even tell me, Parker?
I think you
You're
have.
kind of
I think you have a very good
because
point.
yeah. I mean, you know more about Gab and Parlor than I do. Can you even tell me anything about those platforms besides the fact that they're right wing,
No,
free speech?
I mean
Yeah,
Gab.
I mean,
Gab does. To be honest with you, I am Parlor. I don't hate Parlor. They're not bad. It's not unpleasant to use, but
mhm,
it's it's almost unpleasant to use. It's considerably worse than Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Gab as a platform. Now, the problem with Gab is that pretty much everyone on there is extreme enough on the right that they are on Gab.
Mm-hmm.
So that the problem with Gab is content, not platform, because the
Yeah.
infrastructure of Gab is actually pretty killer. It really is. It's very similar to Twitter in the basic mechanics, like reply, essentially retweet, repost. But it also has groups, kind of like Reddit.
Mm-hmm.
I say kind of like Reddit because it operates very similar to how Reddit operates. The groups do. But I imagine it's kind of like Facebook groups is probably a better example. Although I don't really know anything about that because I've never used Facebook. But yeah, you can have groups. So there's a Christianity group. There's a group for smoking meat. So there's a ham radio group if you're into ham radio. There's groups for interests like that, but also like well, obviously Trump, various libertarians. A lot of them are political naturally because there's nothing about it that makes it political except for that everyone there is there for political reasons pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So, from an infrastructural perspective, it's actually a fantastic alternative to Twitter. Really. I mean, every other site like Parlor, it's noticeably worse than Twitter functionally.
Mm-hmm.
Gab is not like that, but it is full of people who are extremely to the right. And I am, but it still kind of gets under my skin. Because if you think about it, the reason that Twitter's interesting in large part is arguments.
Mm-hmm.
I can just hear what Telegram is kind of like this too. You can follow people on Telegram, and they don't get banned. That's a messaging app that basically has the ability to have a channel where you just broadcast out your thoughts to a bunch of people. It's kind of like one-way group texting,
Sure.
which it is makes sense why they implement it. But anyway, there's a lot of people who are there. Sydney Powell's there. Disclosed.tv has a channel, and that's mostly what I use it for because they're a really good news source. Anyway, I'm getting a little sidetracked.
Now you're good.
Gab feels like that because there's no one to argue with. On Twitter, if you say some of the things that you see on Gab or on Telegram, people reply and shit all over you, and then you clap back at them, and there's the sparring is the fun of it. Matter of fact, if you look
Mm-hmm.
at our Twitter account at Babel Royale, follow us. That's a lot of what we do because it's fun.
It is. It is very fun to dunk on Biden and Jin Psaki. I was about to say it actually is fun. It's
Yeah,
weird.
yeah.
And that's why
So
it keeps you coming back. It is very toxic though. It's not good for your mental health, I would say. Just getting outraged all the time. But anyways, you were saying.
that's essentially the end of what I want. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is that Gab, if Gab had leftists on it, it would be a threat, a big threat to Twitter. But even
Mhm.
just having a Gab account is so heterodox that they
Yeah.
never would do it. So
You know the funny thing though? I didn't know any of that shit about Gab. Gab to me is the platform with Alex Jones on it. I do not give a shit about Gab, and that's a problem because I am one of the target demographics
yeah,
of Gab.
you're the market,
People
baby.
that don't, yeah, people that don't like Twitter, people that want to see more right wing opinions. Not necessarily not see left wing opinions, but see right wing opinions,
You like
see
represented
opinions that
at
aren't
all?
censored. Yeah, basically people that are anti censorship, like me.
Right.
Um, the fact that I didn't even know it was good as Twitter infrastructure wise, I mean that's a problem for them. They don't have marketing, they don't have a shtick. They don't have anything to keep me. Well, not only they don't have anything to keep me engaged, they don't have anything to get me to come to their site at all. I never even downloaded Gab or looked into it or anything. Gab to me is just the Alex Jones platform. And that's one of the fundamental problems I think with Gab is that they don't have an interesting enough product. And I guess to bring this full circle, the reason this ties back into Trump is because Trump actually has a real chance to make something interesting here because he has the money um, to not only make this a good app for UI experience like you were talking about with Gab, but he doesn't need to rely on Amazon or Google or Facebook or Twitter or any of the media tech bros that shut him down. He's still going to have opposition. He's still going to have people trying to shut him down, but he has the money to fight that off. That's the most interesting part about this to me is that there's potential there. The main drawback here is Trump himself, obviously, because no lefty is getting on
Right.
Trump's app. So
I think it's going to suffer the same fate for that reason.
I think so too.
The other problem
Um,
with this, and this is a problem Parlor faced also. This is way too late.
hmm
The
Yeah,
news cycle is 24 hours tops, and it's really less than that.
yeah,
Um, I mean, if you haven't looked at the news, if you follow the, I mean, if you don't, then it seems like 24 hours. But if you're really following the news, if you're on Twitter multiple times a day, or you get notifications on your phone from some news aggregator, um, yeah, you know that something gets talked about and then stops being talked about in less than 24 hours, unless it's a huge deal.
hmm
So this is not just several news cycles or a month too late. It's October. This happened in January. You that's Gab and Parler were positioned to nail this because they already existed as a place for Twitter refugees to run to. No one, with the speed of social media, you're not solving a problem that happened 10 months ago now. You're fatally
hmm
behind. And Parler had the same problem because they got their hosting pulled, as we discussed, and they didn't have. It took them too long to get back up and running. I don't remember how long it was,
yeah,
but it was on the order of months. And it's like,
yeah,
you're not, people are going to figure out where they're going to get, they're talking to each other. Where are you getting your news? What are you using? Like we're off left Twitter, Parlor's down. Where are you going? Gab, Telegram, Substack. They already figured it out. And so by the time
they've
Parlor was
moved
back
on.
up, it's like, who cares?
hmm
And now it's several months after that, and Trump's finally coming in with from left field with this truth social nonsense. And it's like, dude, we all,
Where were you?
yeah,
Yeah,
we've been living for 10 months without this. Why do we need it now? Because it's not going to
yeah,
have anything on it that isn't already on Telegram or Gab or Parler or Substack or any of the rest. There's a handful of others, places where you can get things that otherwise would be censored. So it's, and on top of that, it has the same problem that Gab and Parler have, where it's basically a right wing echo chamber, which even if you're right wing is not particularly pleasant. So I
yeah, and
have
it's
low hopes.
I have low hopes as well. The only reason I think it's even remotely interesting is because it has Trump's name behind it, which is both
Of
a
course.
curse and a blessing. Biggest curse, biggest blessing. On the one hand, he has the money to make something of it. On the other hand, no left wing person is touching it because it has Trump's name on it. So in a sense, it's doomed from the get go. But it is kind of interesting to me just because people on the right will go to that app. I don't think they'll stay for long because, like you said, there's nothing interesting holding them there.
Right.
There's no debate there. But they will go to the app and they'll download it and see what it's about. And some people will stay, some people will go. Um, the main thing I'm trying to get across, I guess, is not so much for Trump, and his Truth Social, but for anyone that wants to launch a social media app. I think the way to do it, and this is kind of like the thesis statement here of this whole podcast, but I think the way to do it is you just make a good experience. You make the next TikTok
Yeah.
and you govern it the way you want to govern it. You govern it as a free speech platform, but you don't make that public. You don't announce that. You just kind of do it in the background, and then no one targets you. So you fix the issue of people automatically targeting you. You have a good gimmick. You can grow user base. You know, and yeah, I mean, if you get big enough, like I said, Facebook's not going anywhere. Twitter's not going anywhere. Netflix isn't going anywhere. If you get big enough, they can't shut you down. They want to shut down Facebook, but Facebook's flying high. They're soaring high. They're doing fine. Facebook was down, like I said, for what, 6 hours the other day. It's fine. It's back. It's I think it was hitting record highs. I forget, but yeah, I mean, there's no taking Facebook down despite how much they want to do it. It's just too powerful at this point. You need to you need to make a good app first and a free speech app second, I think is the way to do it. Um, yeah, so like to answer the question of how to build a right wing social media app, don't. That's it. Don't. Don't build a Gab, don't build a Parlor, build a good app first. Build the next Vine. Build a Vine was an incredibly good idea on the scale of Netflix of good ideas. It's simple but effective. Vine was just 7-second videos, and that's it. That is
the only
insanely addictive.
the only
Watching
trouble
7-second videos, you know.
that's basically what
Um,
YouTube has become, actually.
I know, but just being able to just scroll down to the next one, it's so easy, so simple.
Yeah.
Um, and it's only seven
No,
seconds.
I think
What's
I
the
think
harm
that
in watching one more? You
yeah,
know.
and I think that YouTube had became that because of Vine in large part.
Hmm. Shorter content.
Yeah, yeah, because there's Andrew Schultz. He's a comedian. Has a very prolific YouTube channel. He's talked about this to some extent very candidly. Like, it's we can get people to sit down and watch a 2 hour special, but we can get way more people to watch 2 hours of 5 minute clips. And as a matter of
Hmm.
fact, they will watch longer than 2 hours of 5 minute
Yep.
clips. They'll watch like 3 and 4 hours of just one after the other. Bang, 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 bang.
It's funny because I don't watch much TV anymore. Even like Netflix, I don't watch much Netflix anymore. I binge the shit out of YouTube
Yeah,
because it's just 5-10 minute videos. I could watch 1.5 to 2 hours of YouTube at a time. And
yeah.
just it'll fly by. But I don't do that for Netflix because my reason is, I'm not gonna sit down and watch 30 minutes an episode. It's just too long. I want to watch an hour episode. It's too long. But I do the same shit on YouTube. It's just cut up in a
We
different way.
we should make a whole podcast about the attention span problem of our culture
Hmm.
because it's not
It's it's a
just
it's a
video even.
related issue for sure.
Oh, it's a whole ass issue. I mean, it's
Hmm.
in video because people will watch again a bunch of clips instead of one thing, and it's even in music. I mean, it used to be you bought an album and it was a piece of vinyl, and you started at the beginning and you went to the end. And if you wanted to listen to a single song, I mean, it was actually hard to identify where it started unless it was at the beginning. So people
Hmm.
generally didn't do that. If they did do it, if it happened enough that you could market that as a separate product, they'd release a single so that you could just listen to that song easily,
Yeah.
and that was a different piece of vinyl. But anyway, the point is that I mean, the album would be 40 minutes. The maximum capacity of a vinyl record is on the order of not quite an hour, 55 minutes or so. I think Def Leppard's oh, I don't remember the name of the album anymore. The point is they had the longest one. It wasn't quite an hour. Actually, I think it might have been a little over it. It's about an hour. Is the point. Songs now are only a few minutes, and as a matter of fact, they're not even that long because they're very repetitive, and they have not just one hook but multiple hooks.
Hmm.
This is a whole discussion we should get into sometime because our attention span is basically rivaling squirrels.
Speaking of attention span, we have a habit of getting off topic quite a bit on these podcasts and streams.
You know, it's okay, I think.
No, I just think it's funny while you're talking about attention span, we're talking about a completely side issue. funny how that
Yeah,
works.
it's funny how that works. Well, speaking of these podcasts, I don't believe I have anything else for this one. Do you?
No, I mean that's essentially it. Just if you're trying to make the next big right wing social media app, just don't make it. Make a good app first
Yeah.
and govern it like you would want to a right wing social media
The
app.
other way.
And
Don't make a right wing social media app. Make it a social media app and govern it with right wing principles.
yeah, exactly.
That's the trouble though, is there's the software industry is so left wing. That's I mean, if you're wondering why that hasn't happened out of all of the social media sites that exist, it's because of the people who know how to make one. Virtually none of them, not not none, and not probably virtually none, but a vanishingly small minority. I mean, probably under 20% are at
Ooh,
all left of center. I'm sorry, at all right of center.
yeah. One thing I did want to mention, I thought you were going in this direction, but you didn't when you were saying that it's too late. Because you went in the direction of
Yeah,
saying like Trump is too late with
yeah,
Gab and Parlor and all that shit. Um, it's almost in a sense too late to make a social media at all. Because Facebook is so strong, Twitter is so strong. It is possible TikTok rose out of nowhere in
yeah.
2020. It's huge now. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it definitely you have your work cut out for you. In a sense, it is kind of late in the game. Like trying to make a streaming service right now, there are so many streaming services. No one gives a shit about anything but Netflix, Hulu, and HBO.
Yeah.
Peacock can get the fuck out. Um, I don't even know the names of the others because they're
Peacock.
just laughable. Yep, NBC's Peacock. No
That's
one cares about it.
NBC? That
I
makes
think it's
sense.
NBC. It's so funny because
Look at
I'm
the
not even
Peacock
100%
logo.
sure it's NBC, but I'm pretty sure it is.
It's the
Um,
Peacock logo, right? I mean,
yeah,
NBC's logo. I didn't even know that's what it was, but it makes sense. Yeah,
they're
it's way too
they're
late.
just Paramount Plus. They're just so late to the game that no one gives a crap about them. You may sign up for like to see one movie that you really want to see, but you're gonna cancel it next month. It's not like Netflix. Netflix is basically a bill these days. You got electricity, you got water, and you got Netflix. It's just a part of what you pay, and that's just your life.
Oh, that's what you mean
It's
by it's a
really what it
bill.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a recurring bill that you don't even think before you pay. You just pay it because it's just what it is. Like you have to have it. It's like Google. Google has basically all but completely created. Well, they've created a monopoly on search engines essentially. I mean, there's DuckDuckGo and Bing. No one uses Bing. DuckDuckGo is used by people like us that care about our privacy, but for the most part, Google dominates that, and it's basically too late to make a search engine. You can, and you might find success if you make a good enough one. But Google,
Good
man, I
luck.
mean,
I
good
mean,
luck.
honestly,
Good luck
good luck because
competing.
I hope that you win, but it's
Hmm.
not. It's an arms race.
Yeah,
It's an AI arms race, and
and they have nukes
Google's the
already.
superpower. Yeah, yeah. You're coming with
You got muskets, and they have nukes.
that's base. I was going to say sticks and stones, but what's the difference?
Hmm.
You think about it, muskets are sticks and stones.
Deep.
Oh, that was good. Yeah, that's
Anyways,
what it
yeah,
is. Yeah,
I thought you
Google's.
were. Yeah, I thought you were going in that direction, but you didn't, and so I wanted to bring that up too because it is kind of almost too late in that sense as
It
well.
is. It is a worthwhile point, but it's social media changes fast enough
It
within a
does. There.
site and in sort of globally that
Hmm.
it's not a lost cause. But boy,
Yeah.
you'd better come with something.
I mean, and the reason I know it's not impossible is because no one knew they wanted Vine until they had it. Same thing with Netflix, Twitter too.
That's
No
the
one knew they
trick,
wanted
isn't
these
it? That's
things
like
until they had it.
that's the Steve Jobs idea. You
Yeah.
know, well, Steve, the consumer wants more ports and they want more compatibility. He's like, no, they don't. They don't know what they want. I know what they want. They don't know what they want. And you kind of have to be an asshole to actually say of millions of people, they don't know what they want. I do.
Yeah.
But, and
That's what it takes in business. You got to be an asshole.
it's too much of a trick, or it's a disappointment because Trump is kind of that kind of guy, but he's just playing exactly into the hand of what people think they want, which is free speech platforms, but they don't freaking use them. So no, they don't. They don't.
Yeah.
They don't. They want, I mean, really, what they want is addictive platform, as much as they'd hate to admit it.
Hmm.
They want something that they can just look at for 2 hours and lose the time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so this started as basically telling Trump what not to do, but I think that social media, Truth Social, is basically a lost cause. It's just kind of like what sparked my interest in this in the first place. I don't have much hope for it, but we'll see. We'll see what he does and how he shakes things up. Maybe he does create something that's interesting. I really don't see left wing people downloading it though,
Oh, the
because
hell no.
all he's talked about so far is just how it's free speech, free speech, free speech, no censorship, stuff like that. It's like, eh, that's what Gab was. That's what Parlor was.
Yeah, there's no selling point.
Anyways, um, I think we about covered it. I think at this point we'd be talking in circles if we tried to go any farther with this. Big point is
I agree.
don't make don't make right wing social media apps, guys. If you want to make the next big thing, make it the next big thing, and govern it morally, unlike Twitter and Facebook.
Product first, governance second.
Hmm. And
Really,
with that,
marketing first. But
yeah, marketing is a big part. And with that, I think we're about done. So
I
if you
agree.
like what we do, follow us on Twitter at Babel Royale. Follow us on YouTube, Babel Royale as well. Twitch, Babel Royale. They're all Babel Royale.
And we are on
Um,
every podcast platform that we can think to get ourselves on. If you get podcasts somewhere and can't find us, email us at babbleroyale at protonmail.com or tweet us or anything. Um, no one interacts with us, so if you pretty much reach out on any platform, we'll see it.
the sad reality.
Hey, man, we're just starting. It's okay.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate the support.
And
Have a good one.
tune in next
Babylon.
time and babble on.